For the first time ever, I am thrilled to say we have an official sponsor for the Dirt Talk podcast, and that's Ariat. I've worn Ariat boots on every job site I've visited over the years, traveling in them across 5 continents. More importantly, I have yet to find a single project where working folks, unlike me, are not wearing Ariat boots and workwear in every condition imaginable. And there's really good reason for that, and that's because it's phenomenal stuff. And the more I've learned about Ariat and the company, the more I've loved their brand. So with this, Ariat is offering any Dirt Talk listener 10% off their next Ariat order at ariat.com/dirttalk. That's 10% off boots, jeans, and workwear at ariat.com/dirttalk or at the link in this episode's description. With that, let's get to the show.
Yeah, we've enjoyed the summit. I mean, it's been awesome.
Yeah.
No, we've been to both.
Yeah, you've brought a lot of people. Probably more than just about any other
Your first
company.
one, and then the second one last year was phenomenal. Got a lot of good feedback.
Yeah,
like and two,
good.
like meeting the different. Everybody there is in our same league, right?
Yep.
We're all in the same space, and it's nice to be able to have that conversation, with other contractors, or companies that are in that industry, and discuss, things that you can't have, that discussion with at the dinner table because not many people understand.
Sure.
What it's like to be in that industry. So
yeah, and this market's so interesting because it's so fragmented. So it's like you're a big player in the Chicagoland area, but then you go to the next city over, there's big players there too. And then you go to the next city over, there's big players, and they do the same thing. And it's like, I think contractors, I've talked about this, like they think they're a little more special than they are. And it's like, I know you've got a unique culture, you've got a unique formula, history, whatever it is. A road's a road. Asphalt's asphalt. Like it's you're using the exact same equipment. You're paving to the state spec,
exactly,
but whatever it is that
dig
everybody else is.
Fill it,
It's and so it's really not that different across. And everybody has the same problems. Like, people are tearing up our equipment, or we're struggling to recruit, or how do we market ourselves better, or how do we bid more efficiently?
Exactly.
It's all the same stuff. Our suppliers, man, they're really squeezing us right now.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's the same everywhere.
Yeah,
and it makes it, and that's what makes it unique, is because you don't really know that because you don't see it every day, right? You're in kind of your bubble, and you're in your geographical area. And when you meet people that are in other areas, and you kind of have that same conversation that you had with your employee, and it's just a different company and a different location.
Yeah, I make
point.
Well, I make the rookie mistake thinking, and this is like human psychology 101, thinking that everybody has the same perspective I have, and every once in a while something will remind me, like, hey, everybody's in their own world. Like there was a guy who was running. I mean, he nearly had 1,000 people. This was years ago. And he was in a town, maybe an hour from another another city. He owned the market. Extraordinary business. One of the most impressive companies I have seen to date. He sold it to a bigger materials company. But I was sitting down with him, and he was like, so what do they pay up in, the other town? And it's an hour away. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, he doesn't even know the pay scale in the next town over. Like that's
right.
You think that's information you
would know. Right?
You would know, but it's like he has no idea. Like it's just they're really in a massive, 1,000 people in one market, but that's the world.
That's the world.
There's nothing else outside of that.
Yeah, it's wild, crazy.
Yeah,
we're in the same situation. You go to Indiana, right? I mean, which is 30 miles south of us.
Yep.
Southeast of us, and it's a whole different game.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get into Michigan, you go around the lake and get into Michigan, again, a whole nother game.
Yeah. And then Wisconsin,
Then Wisconsin,
yeah.
Too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
Yeah. It's fun too to see the differences between the different states, different cities, and then now different countries. To see like how Europe does it and that kind of stuff. Like if you guys had a chance to go to Bauma or something like that, it's extraordinary.
I can imagine. Yeah.
It is the paving they do. Like
is it well advanced than we are, or is it
so much further?
So much
like
further.
Even like the Germans. So they have the Autobahn network.
Yeah.
And I was talking to them. I was with the cat dealer, and they're like, we haven't sold a single cat paver in Germany. And I was like, why is that? And they're like, they're not precise enough.
Wow.
And so because on the Autobahn, no speed limit, so it has to be perfect. Like the tolerances are extraordinarily tight.
Wow.
There's no patching. Like it's snug because it has to be, or else it's a risk to public safety.
Sure.
And it's like, I hadn't even thought of that. Like the thought of a perfect highway that doesn't exist in America.
No.
Like
No.
and I'm not throwing shade here. Like some are nicer than others.
Sure.
But a perfect highway?
You're not going to find that.
No.
You're not going to find that.
So,
the attempt is there, right? They try.
We're getting there.
Yeah. We're getting there, and the specs are written to adhere to that. But it's hard, and it's something that there's a tolerance, and you take that tolerance.
Are you guys mostly on the public side?
Yeah. So we're probably a lot of our business is, I would say, probably 50% of our revenue is public bidding.
Yeah.
Contract work that we do.
Yeah.
And then the other side is retail. Like we sell material
I see.
to non-plant owners.
I see.
Like parking lot pavers and those kind of customers.
Okay.
And we cater to those guys because there's less risk, right? And you drop the material in their truck and you send them an invoice the next day.
Yeah, sure.
Right. So and you get the volume at your asphalt plant facilities. Right? Because volume is everything.
Yeah.
Right. The more volume, less unit cost. Therefore you're more competitive.
Sure.
So.
But then doing the paving yourself also allows you to extend the volume.
Exactly.
And control
it's
some of the
great
volume.
Balance.
Yeah.
We've learned that. A lot of guys they want to it's about them, right? It's all about, their trucks getting in line, getting on the scale, getting loaded, getting out of there. We're the opposite. Like our customers come first. If I have 4 trucks in line waiting and there's customers behind them, my guys are getting out of the way and that customer's coming in. We cater to that service. That's a big part of our business. And we get a lot of repeat.
Yeah.
And we get, and they're loyal. These guys are loyal. So it's like having salesmen, like auxiliary salesmen on the street that you're not paying.
Sure.
Right.
Which is the good.
Because I don't want to do the parking lot work.
Yeah.
We're not set up for that.
Yeah.
We're not good at it.
Yeah.
And these guys are.
Mm-hmm.
We want to sell them that material.
Yeah. And like paving, to the average person is all just paving, but a municipal street is very different than an interstate, is very different than a parking lot, is very different than a Walmart distribution center.
Exactly.
It's
completely
all asphalt,
different,
but totally different.
Different approach, different application, different material types, right? So, we're set up, and we've learned this over the years. We can pave a heavy highway.
Mm-hmm.
We can pave a municipal street just as good as anybody. You put us in a parking lot with a 1055F cat paver,
sure,
track machine, we're not going to do very well.
Yeah.
So,
it's is that market? Is it mostly asphalt? Is there any concrete up there? There is.
There is. Yeah. There's concrete. So the Illinois Tollway, their new cross section is stabilized subbase, which is like a 3-inch binder mix.
Okay.
And then on top of that is between 9 and 12-inch PCC base course.
Yeah.
And then on top of that is 4 inches of asphalt.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So that they can replace the asphalt.
Yeah. The maintenance is easier.
Yeah.
Right. It's less expensive.
Yeah.
And it's not as loud. It's quiet.
Yeah. So Arizona, they went asphalt on all their. It was all concrete. It's all concrete.
Mm-hmm.
So everything was concrete surface, and then they went a rubberized asphalt mix.
Okay.
Which was really quiet. It was phenomenal how much more quiet it was.
Like ground tire rubber?
Ground tire rubber.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then, but the problem is then, because it was soft, the maintenance on it just became too expensive.
Mm.
So they've started removing it all again and then redoing the surface of the concrete.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is kind of a bummer, but it's the asphalt.
Yeah.
Like you go from even just asphalt to concrete at that speed, it's really different.
Very different.
Yeah.
And obviously we're an advocate of asphalt, right? I mean, we're a producer, we manufacture it, and we want to see it. But there's certain applications that just don't allow for it. So there's a little bit of both up there.
Yeah, and this was stuff I didn't understand because Arizona, the weather's the same. Well, it's a binary weather system. It's either hot or it's nice. There's no variance other than that. Whereas in other places like the Midwest, you have freeze thaw, and you have different soil conditions and this and that. So in Arizona, every street is just asphalt.
Yeah,
there's a concrete street. It's completely unheard of.
Okay.
Though the concrete highways, that'll be concrete, but there's just no street in the entire city that's concrete. Whereas Midwest, other places, there's a lot of concrete.
Yep.
Even if it's asphalt, concrete, asphalt, to just give you that rigidity.
Yeah, exactly.
Even with just the weather.
Yep.
And then you have, like we were talking about earlier too, the snow plows just running over it all winter, and then the salt on it, and all this extra abuse that you don't have in other climates.
You don't see that elsewhere. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. And that stuff it just deteriorates the roads.
Yeah.
The winter season. Then you get in the city of Chicago, and all their arterial streets are, concrete base course. And what's funny is we're finding this out is, even in the whole kind of northern Illinois area, back in the 1950s and 60s, everything was concrete.
Yeah.
Because now we run into a patch and it's all concrete base course that we're pulling out underneath that 4 inches of asphalt, on a slag, like a road that's made of slag.
Yeah.
And then you can tell these roads are like 1950s, maybe 60s, right?
That's Great Lake stuff.
So now what do we do with the slag? It's something we run into all the time. There's nowhere to put it. You grind it out, you grind it off the road, and where do you take it? Because you can't crush it. You can, but you can't use it.
Yeah.
Right? Because our mix designs are designed off, a non-slag, fragmented asphalt.
Sure.
And steel slag has steel in it, right? So now your specific gravities change, right? So now your mix designs are blown up. Your volumetrics you lose out on, right? Your VMAs, your voids, all that stuff.
So you just have to
find a hole for it. We got to find a hole for it. Yeah. And it's challenging.
Well, and that's the crazy, like a really urban place like Chicago, like even finding a hole for something like that is really tricky. Like we were talking about, just like some of the quarries are underground there, which is, it's almost unheard of. Just the fact that land is so hard to find that they've had to go underground and that they can sell that rock and make money while they're mining it 200 feet below the surface. It's just rock.
It's wild. Yeah.
It's crazy that the market demands that almost.
Well, I mean, just in our area, in the Chicagoland area, there's 36 asphalt plants.
36.
And like probably 120-mile radius.
Woof. Wow.
Oh, yeah, it's super saturated. Yeah.
It's I was out there a few years ago. It's been interesting too, watching all of the development into like the really terrible land. They had one Witek, Nick Frederick. They were digging through. It was an old landfill, and so to develop a new Amazon warehouse or something. It was right in the middle of the city. It was like spectacular location, but it was a landfill. But they're like, nope, just get it all out of there, haul it all off, and we'll just build our building right here. And I just was watching I have pictures of the excavator just pulling out just buckets of trash and tires and all kinds of shit, putting it in trucks, hauling it off, and then covered the whole property in piers, whole thing in piers because the ground's not worth anything. And then just put your 1 million square feet of building right on top of it.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You gotta take what you can find because there's not a lot of vacancy and it's such a dense area. So back to trying to find places to dump material. I mean, it's something that it's part of our due diligence process, in the bidding process, just because, you don't want to get caught with your pants down, not knowing what you're going to do with that material. So
can you mill? You can mill slag in concrete? Yeah. You can mill concrete, right?
Yep. We do it a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
Does it,
you get
but it can't have steel in it.
You get specific teeth.
Yeah.
For your grinder.
And it can
do it.
Chew right through it.
You don't want to go down, like 6 inches.
Yeah.
In one pass. Yeah. You want to stay in the 2 inch, kind of 2.5 inch is as deep as you want to go. Because you start compromising your equipment, and it's really not worth it. But it's done a lot.
Is a lot of the paving work you guys do replacing existing?
A lot of it.
Yeah, resurfacing.
A lot of it. As you go further west, kind of more, rural kind of areas, it's you run into new construction, kind of new roads.
And there's a lot of warehouse that's pushed out, just the whole Chicagoland area. But I remember, I went out.
So Facebook
west as well,
or Meta, I mean, they developed a massive data center in DeKalb. DeKalb County is like it's probably 45, 50 miles, west of the city of Chicago.
Yeah,
and there's nothing. It's all farms, right? And they just put this massive data center in the middle of nowhere.
That's what they're doing,
and you're seeing that everywhere now.
Yeah,
like even further north in like southern Wisconsin, there's nothing there. Except Microsoft. Building this massive data center. Yeah,
it'll be like a $5 billion project in the middle of nowhere.
Exactly.
Yeah, former just farmland. I don't quite understand the whole data center. I don't think anybody does really. They don't. I don't understand. I don't understand how they choose the location. I don't understand really how they work. But they're just everywhere now. The scale. Well, they just announced the what's it, Starbase something program. $500 billion, and it's like. I think that money just goes over a lot of people's heads, but it's like $500 billion in private investment for these gigantic energy and water, buildings that are more energy hungry than anything humanity's ever created.
Right.
And we're just going to put them everywhere.
Just going to put them everywhere. And where do we get the electricity?
Well, that's and so that's the thing. Yeah, I think I just had this conversation with her, but there's some states that have had to say no more. Like, stop. We just can't do it.
They don't have the supply.
We don't have the power. Yeah. We're like outrunning the grid, and then we're also saying we're going to go to all EVs and this and that. It's like the grid.
It's unrealistic. Right?
It's physics. Like we're trying to outrun physics. It doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
You can't outrun physics. So, but just another one just kicked off in Louisiana, and it's like, I got pictures of the dirt spread, and it's just like,
acres and acres
as far as you can see. Yeah. They go strip like 1,000 acres or whatever it is. Just the scale. And then schedules.
That's coming, right? It's here and it's being developed even more and more and more as we talk. So how do we adapt to that? As in that construction space, in that dirt world space, how do you adapt to that and keep up with that, with the demand of that?
Yeah, how do you keep up with the demand? But then also, I feel like a lot of people I've talked to who have lived through the recession, they're also a little apprehensive. Like, I don't want to go over here. We need to go build this stuff. It's opportunity, but then we need to be careful putting all of our eggs in that basket, because especially with a private company, they can just stop at any moment and just say like, hey, we're just actually going to pause.
Yep.
And it's like, what do you mean we're going to pause? We just bought $20 million in material.
A ton of money in material and equipment, right?
Yeah, and I've got fuel bills and this and that.
And it can't sit.
Yeah.
If it's sitting, there's no revenue.
Right? So, and I've had to buy all this additional equipment to even just do the job, because the scale is so enormous. And then I'm already doing all the municipal or government stuff I usually do over here. So like, I was just reading from the Kiewit book yesterday, and they got for the Atomic Energy Commission, they built, it was, I guess, the biggest construction project in the United States ever at the time. It was to build the plant in Ohio that enriched uranium for the United States military, and then for the nuclear power plants. And there was like 20,000 people on site at one time. 20,000.
Wow.
And it was Kiewit was the prime, but Peter Kiewit from the beginning was like, this cannot take priority. This is just another job. We have to treat it like just another job. Everything else we're doing is just as important.
Wow.
Because there's going to be a day where this project doesn't exist anymore.
Yep.
And if we've burned bridges with other customers, if we haven't bid the work we needed
there's going to be nowhere to go.
We're shit out of luck. Yeah. So to have
that point.
Foresight, like, listen, guys, this is really exciting. We should celebrate it, but it's just another job.
Right. That's great. Yeah.
It's good. Yeah. There was one data center in Idaho we went to. So because the data centers, they require just a ton of piping for the cooling. It's like just the amount of underground utilities at these things is great. It's just like a spaghetti bowl.
Yeah.
So they had to do like all this piping was like 10, 15 feet below the building pad, but the whole area was just solid rock. So the cheaper way to do it was to then just import material so that they could or trench through it or import material, build up your pad. You could dig your trenches, put your pipe in the ground. But they didn't want to put truck traffic on the area, surrounding area for some reason. So they blasted like the entire building area.
Wow.
And this is like a giant build,
Yeah.
giant. And they over excavated the entire area by like 20 feet.
Wow.
Sent all the material to a crushing spread, crushed it all down to whatever, like 3-inch minus.
And then brought it back.
Brought it all back. And then across the whole thing. And then went through and did all the utility work.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Just dug a hole.
Yeah.
Crushed it all.
Crushed it all, brought it back. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And it's just like to think, like, again, the economics support that.
Right.
Whereas 5 years ago, 10 years ago, something like that.
Never would have thought of it.
It's just out of the question.
Yeah. It's wild.
Chicago's interesting too because it's so close to Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people have been going to Indiana, like just across the state line.
Yeah.
It's just blown up.
It's blown up.
Yeah.
It's blown up. We monitor and we track our customers at a high level, and customers meaning guys that, we supply material to. And it's like, hey, where have you been in the last week? Your tonnage is down. Oh, I've had 2 crews in Indiana. That's what you hear that a lot.
Yeah.
And even further south, these guys are going to Tennessee now.
Sure.
Because these general contractors, they're, a lot of the investment in that space is happening further south. Right.
Yeah.
And these general contractors that these guys work for, they're inviting them to come wherever they go.
Yep.
And they just chase these guys around and do their work.
Yep.
So it's happening not everywhere. And I feel like, that reinvestment in the state of Illinois is minimizing itself.
Yeah, you got like Illinois has been one of the states that's been really hurt over the past 5 years.
Yeah,
like Illinois, New York, California.
Right.
There's a few that they've taken a heavy hit. People have just been like, now we're going to go elsewhere.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, I've been watching like internal migration, and it's like Indiana's booming. I'm like, Indiana.
Right.
Why are people moving to Indiana? And that's like, well, they're all coming from Chicago. I'm like, oh,
exactly. Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Too, the high interest rate environment hasn't helped.
Yeah.
Hasn't helped that commercial market. So hopefully we see some, that change in the near future to encourage some, more investment back in Illinois and back in our area.
Well, and the interest rates and then just the election, it was just how much money just gets parked.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
we're just going to park it.
Right.
See how this pans out.
Unforeseen. We don't know what's going to happen.
Yep.
Let's just wait it out. Yeah.
I saw
Definitely.
a lot of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of that. And then now it started to shake loose again, some at least.
Yeah.
At least that's my
it is.
read.
It is. We're getting a lot of good feedback too.
Yeah.
From investors and developers, and so
how with the but despite like what's going on with interest rates economy, there's still like the capital budget for the area is still somewhat fixed. What is it, like 5 years? It's always like 5 years out?
Yeah, so they do like a multi-year program, usually 5 years, sometimes 6. And Illinois, I mean, they're investing right in infrastructure. I think they're going to spend like 5.4 billion a year on infrastructure, and that means that's not just roads, right? We wish it was, but
yeah, like O'Hare,
it's bridges, it's aeronautics, rail,
yeah.
All that type of stuff, water. But the funding's there. It's just we have to get the engineering to stay ahead of the funding, because what's going on is the engineering is lacking, and they can't get the work out fast enough.
Yep.
Right. So the funding's there. It's just they don't have the jobs ready.
It's not talked about enough, the whole squeeze, and even within like DOTs. DOTs are struggling to keep people.
Yeah.
Like to retain people.
Right.
Because if I'm a young engineer, I go to work for a DOT for a few years out of school, and then I go make twice as much money with a private firm.
Right. And you're going to get, and if you're on a job working for the DOT and you have a contractor like us, we're going to recruit you.
Exactly.
If we see value in you and you're young and you bring something that we're looking for, we're going to recruit you. And more than likely, there's a better opportunity for that individual to come work at a private firm than stay with that DOT. And that's a great point, because that's happening, especially with the Illinois Department of Transportation. That is happening a lot. And they don't have the internal resources to keep up.
No, they can't.
So now what does that mean? Now you go hire a consultant, right, an engineering consultant, and say, hey, we're going to put this out for bid. We're going to award it to the low bid.
Yeah.
And here's a list of projects that we want to do. And it just sputters the whole production of getting these jobs ready.
Which is, I think that's why, like when you look at how the construction industry's declined substantially in 40-year period from a productivity standpoint, just like significant decline. If you look at the graph, every other industry is up. We're just right down. I think that's part of it. Just and permitting is a part too, and it's just slowed stuff down. When you slow stuff down, it makes it so much more expensive.
And don't forget, Aaron, we're seasonal.
Sure.
You're not paving in January and February.
Yeah.
You're losing 2 to 3 months every year. Yeah. So now you're cramming in 12 months worth of work in a 9-month season, right? You bid a job in January. We're not getting contracts until March.
Yeah.
They're not being executed until April.
I see.
Right? So you're looking at a 90 to 100-day window that, and it's, we have to plan. And as soon as that weather breaks, we got to go, right? Because every day miss is just that's huge.
Sure.
It's a lot that you give up on. So that's a challenge for sure.
Yeah.
And trying to streamline that process, it just seems like it's like you're like pulling hair.
Yeah, that's another thing I took for granted from Arizona is you pay 52 weeks a year.
Yeah.
Their problem is, when do we shut the plant down for maintenance?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Whereas exactly.
We're like, our maintenance program is probably too robust. Yeah. Because we have 3 months to do it. Right?
Yeah. If you have a plant problem in the summer, it's unheard of. It's like, this thing's immaculate, man.
Yeah.
It's the seasonal thing's tough, but it has been interesting because I feel like weather is an obvious constraint, but I feel like there's more work getting done in winter now than in like 5 to 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Because the schedules and I don't know what's happened, but I feel like a lot of the commercial stuff, the schedules are just so much more aggressive. They're willing to just pay. Like, they know it's not very cost effective to do it in winter when they can do it, but they'll just pay anyway.
They'll just pay.
Yeah.
Well, because it's more important for them to get that tenant into the building rather than wait 3 months. They don't mind, and we tell them, like, we're going to need a waiver because we're not going to guarantee this work because we're out of spec.
Sure.
And they don't care. They'll, no problem, sign the waiver, and we put our best foot forward all the time, right? We're not going to say we're just going to go in and, bum rush and get it done and not care. But they don't care. They sign off on it, and
it's out of spec because of temperature.
Temperature specs, yeah.
What do you need? 35 and rising?
You need 45 and rising for
45.
surface. Yeah, 40 and rising for binder.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
then you got to get density, right? There's a density spec too.
Sure.
So
is the density harder to make?
It's harder to make
colder?
when it's cold. Yeah. And the concern there too is, if you got a frozen subgrade or sub base that you're paving on.
Yeah.
What happens when it thaws out after you've paved on it?
Sure.
Right? It's more than likely going to move.
Yeah.
And when it moves, what happens? It cracks. Then you get the phone. Then the phones start ringing.
Yeah.
I just got this paved in December, and it's now May, and it's cracking. So.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's stuff I haven't even really thought about.
Yeah, and not many do.
No. They still, sometimes I'll see, it'll be pretty cold and they'll still be paving some places.
Yeah.
So I have wondered about that. Like, how do they pull that off? But
you're getting a waiver of some sort.
I see.
And it's a challenge. Like, the tollway, they have to get it done, right?
Mm-hmm.
You only have so many days to keep up that permanent lane closure,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's when you approach those deadlines, it has to be done.
Because they can, and the tollway is interesting because a typical road can assign a cost, like this is costing us this, but they can't really prove it's costing us this. Whereas like the tollway, they know exactly what it's costing them.
They know exactly.
Yeah.
They know exactly.
so they can do the math pretty quick.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of tollway around Chicago.
There is. Yeah. A lot of toll.
And it's
toll
expensive.
Roads. Expensive.
It's
Right.
really
And every
expensive.
year it goes up.
Yeah. First time I
but
drove,
they really got a great program because, they got all their engineers, set up, ready to go ahead of time. And when they have a 5-year schedule. So when they let these jobs, they know exactly when they're going to be let
Mhm.
and when the whole process of their, when they're going to be completed. And they stay right on track.
Is it government tollway there? Or is it private?
It's Illinois Tollway. It's private and it's
But it's a
public
private.
private.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So IDOT, and I don't want to get too in depth because I don't know the whole story, but IDOT, they sold that,
Yeah.
30 or 40 years ago
Yeah.
to the Tollway Authority.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they have an unbelievable program.
Mhm.
They know their cross section does not vary. It's the same no matter what part of the tollway you're on, which is great because you know exactly what you're doing. You know how to do it.
Sure.
They're more advanced, I would say, than any other public entity as far as DOTs because they do a lot of experiment programs. Whether they're trying to get rid of nuclear density and go to some sort of other density application that's non-nuclear.
Really?
Right? Yeah, it's more. I don't know enough. There's not enough information out there yet.
Yeah.
But they're going to have a couple pilot projects. I think this year, 2025, with that.
Is density? I went through all these classes in engineering school. Density with asphalt is so important.
Mm-hmm.
You want a certain amount of voids in your asphalt, but not too many voids.
Correct.
And if you have too many voids, is it water that's the problem, or it can be?
Can be.
Yeah.
Yeah, can be.
Because if water and oil don't mix.
Correct.
So
Right.
if water's in your asphalt, it starts to separate things and make things.
Yep. And if it freezes, obviously
freezes,
it expands and then contracts. And that's when you get the cracking. But so there's multiple density specs depending on what type of material you're actually placing.
Mm-hmm.
And voids voids and density go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
So we're always we're checking at the plant and on the job for density and voids, just to make sure that we're staying within spec. Because a lot of the work we're doing, it's pay for performance, right?
Sure.
So there's pay factors on density, on VMA, which is the voids within the mineral aggregate. So picture a bucket of rocks, right, with nothing in it, no oil, no water, nothing, just a bucket of rock. So the voids within that is the VMA, we call it. The voids within that aggregate. Yeah. And then so you're paid based on those pay factors, and you get tolerances, right? There's parameters. And
so if you're not within it, they essentially fine you in a way.
Essentially. Yeah, so if you're not within it, you get a monetary penalty based on your unit price that you bid for that specific pay item.
And you're on the hook not just for the work you're doing, but for the asphalt you're selling to others. Like it has to meet everything you sell has to be a certain spec.
Every facility we have lab technicians, and we have QA labs. Yeah. That we're pulling samples every so many tons, every 200 tons. I would say we're pulling samples for that mix. Yeah. We're checking all that stuff. We're running it. We're checking the Big D, right? Big D gives us our density, our voids. And the Big D is the specific gravity. Yeah. Yeah, the maximum specific gravity. And the little d is the theoretical.
I'm trying to
specific gravity.
How do they do that? I know there's one test where they burn it, or they put it in an oven.
Yep.
Burn off your oil to determine your oil content.
Exactly. Yeah. So we got away from that.
Oh, really?
From the ignition ovens. Oh. So we're now doing. It was reflux jars, and there's a chemical that I think it's TCE or of some sort, and it's getting kind of. They're talking about banning it because of the hazardness that it causes. or that it has. So we have these asphalt analyzers now. It's like this. It's like you walk into a doctor's office and you see like this big apparatus sitting in
Really?
there, and it's this crazy machine with a computer. Yeah, and you put your sample in this, and it spins it and it extracts the oil, and that's how we get our oil content.
That's crazy.
It's crazy.
Huh.
It's an expensive machine.
I'm sure it's expensive.
Very expensive.
We went in Western Australia, an iron mine with Rio Tinto, and they're mining iron. So they like the ore body varies. So you have a percent iron within the ore you're mining, but you need to produce a consistent blend of iron at the plant. So they need to know what ore grade is going into the plant. So as they drill across it, they're collecting samples out of every hole. So they do this in exploration, but then in production, they'll take samples out of every hole, and then you have to test the ore grade to know, all right, this is whatever percent, this is whatever percent, this is whatever percent. But the lab that they had was all automated. So they feed the samples in, and then there's just like cages with robots, like switching stuff around just nonstop all day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to test all of these samples completely robotically, automatically.
And getting results.
Yeah. And then like these little conveyors, like taking the samples to different places, and it was spectacular.
That's amazing.
It was really something to see, because it's a very repetitive job.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really sucks.
Absolutely.
It's easy to say like, well, that's a job loss. Like to somebody that's never done it, it's like, do it for 12 hours and let's talk about Let's talk about it. And there's plenty of people to do the robot stuff.
12 hours every day.
Yeah. But
day in and day out. Yeah.
They've automated it all. And then the cool thing is, this is just like bonus information. The trucks are autonomous. So once they know on this pattern what the ore grade is, as the excavator digs, the excavator's GPS on it, as the excavator's digging, the computer knows what ore grade is in that excavator's bucket. So then when that excavator puts the material into the truck knows what ore grade it has within it. And then the plant tells the computer what ore grade they need at any one time. So it'll prioritize whatever machines are in the proper ore grade.
Wow.
And send more trucks to this excavator over here because that's the proper ore grade. And then we'll send the other deprioritize other ones, or send that to stockpiles or whatever it is. It's just,
the investment on that, I just can't imagine.
It's billions and billions and billions to even start up one of these mines. But then it'll have a 40-year mine life. So, and you're in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
So it's like it kind of has to be automated in a way. It's just the natural way of how things work.
Yeah, I've seen some of your stuff. We have the excavator is down in the mine, solo, like by itself with no operator in it.
Yeah,
and that operator is controlling it from elsewhere. For safety reasons, I'm sure.
I was just at a project in Canada on Monday, and they have to mine up against these old mine shafts. So it's like they're not totally sure what the ground's going to do. And so they have remote control D10 dozers and then a remote control 992, which is the first time I've seen that. They're running a manned now, but then once they get into that area, they'll switch to remote.
Gotcha.
And we'll just do it all remote.
That's cool.
Yeah. But
just to have that capability is really amazing.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty good. Yeah. It's like everybody I've talked to that's done it is like, yeah, it's pretty sweet.
That's cool.
Like, I went to one in Germany, and they had like the room, they had like mood lighting, and it's air conditioned. They've got carpet. They take their shoes off. So, they leave the shoes outside, no dirt or anything like that.
Wow.
And then the music the sound from the cab is played on a speaker. So it sounds like an excavator. They're running an excavator. It sounds like you're in the cab.
That's amazing.
It's identical.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's great.
Chicago, it's such a like we were talking about, it's such a bubble. It's so different. Like Chicago is so different. Florida is so different. New York, Boston, Seattle, like there's a few places that are just really different markets.
Yeah.
Chicago's one of those.
Chicago, it's you don't see anybody that's vertically integrated in Chicago, especially, in our space, meaning own the asphalt plant, own the rock quarry, that you're sitting in, like that's unheard of. And everywhere else you go or you hear, it's, Joe Smith Contracting owns the quarry and the asphalt plant.
Yep. Yeah, there's some of that.
So that's unique about Chicago. You don't see that at all.
Mm-hmm. It's Chicago. I think what makes it unique too is the unions are extremely strong.
Very strong.
Like 150 is a force to be reckoned with.
Yes.
And I know there's others there as well.
Yeah. So we have the 150 operators, and then the laborers, which are all different kind of locals. And the Teamsters.
And you do Teamsters.
Teamsters are all the truck drivers.
Yeah.
And then we have carpenters. We have finishers from the concrete stuff.
Really?
Yeah. And, mechanics.
And mechanics.
Mechanics as well.
Are mechanics part of Teamsters or where do they fall?
They're automobile mechanics.
Oh.
Select Local 701.
Okay.
And then we have some Local 150 mechanics that are
interesting.
That are operators. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm still not super familiar with how that stuff works.
It's you're required to have, if a guy's on the street and he's a mechanic, he should be a 150 mechanic.
I see.
If he's in your shop, then
okay,
you can have the automobile mechanics.
I thought it was I'm gonna say I thought it was funny when I was driving into Chicago for the first time and I saw a giant inflatable rat outside of a construction project, and I was like, I asked the guy I was with, I was like, what is that? Like, what is going? I mean, it was like a 20-foot
inflatable something you don't
rat.
See on a construction site that's normal, right?
Yeah, just giant, like not like
And I'm sure you saw the guys standing around it.
Standing around it, and I asked
pickup
him,
trucks parked next to it. Yeah,
yeah, but he's like, oh, they're protesting or whatever the right word is. I don't know.
They're striking, they're picketing.
Yeah. And I thought he was bullshitting me. I'm like, no, like that's
unheard of.
What?
Yeah.
No, yeah. It's crazy, but it's like,
but it happens.
I've seen it all over
a
now.
lot.
Yeah. Once I saw it once, it's like, that's a real thing.
Yeah.
Like,
shame on them.
Yeah. Good luck being non-union in this market.
Yeah. It's tough.
It's our way or the highway. And then you can buy those inflatable rats too. I found them online.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like $5,000.
Okay.
You could have your own 20.
So we could buy rat. Some, and then we could just set them up on
competitors
yes. jobs. Yeah. I wasn't going to say that, but
yeah. It's just different,
but it creates a kind of a level playing field, from a labor standpoint.
Yeah.
And the 150, I mean, they have some skilled operators.
I've heard they do.
And the stuff we're doing requires that. We need that. So they have a good training program, and we're working hard to kind of increase that program, make it even more robust.
Sure.
Because it's hard to find. I mean, we cannot find people, skilled people.
Yeah.
Right. You cannot. I mean, that generation that is retiring right now, they're unreplaceable.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's just these younger guys don't want to do it.
Yeah.
So we're kind of, in our business, we're going through this where how do we attract these younger kids and bring them in, and then how do we retain them?
Yep.
Right. Because the first question we get more on the administrative side is, can I work from home?
Sure.
Right. I mean, that's an everyday question.
Is it really?
Oh yeah.
You can't pave a road from home.
You can't work from home in this industry. So, that's a challenge. Been a challenge. So,
yeah, I think just the nature of the work too is one of the biggest problems with like just attracting women, for example. I know that's one of the big things, but it's like you can't do it with the family. Like you can't work 80 hours a week when you have kids at home.
You can't.
And or if you're pregnant.
Exactly.
Or if you just had a child, like it's
hard.
It doesn't math.
Right.
Yeah, it just doesn't work.
Right.
And so it's even like man, we do need to hire more women or whatever it is, but it's like, but we're still kind of stuck with the model we have. That is, when the weather's good,
right,
we've got to work.
We got to work.
Yeah, and it's and in a seasonal market, some of those weeks are long.
They're
weeks.
long.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Some of those days, it can get long.
Things are becoming more efficient.
Sure.
You're not seeing that 14-hour day much anymore. Number one reason is because the labor cost.
Sure.
Right. I mean, you put an operator on double time. That's expensive, and you don't budget for that.
Yep.
You could lose your pants pretty quick.
Double times over 12.
Double time starts over 12.
Yeah.
12 hours. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then anything on Sundays, any work on Sundays is double time as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And every union's different, right? So now we got to keep up with the work rules, right? Which is another challenge with all the different unions. To your point earlier,
and they all have different
different work rules,
yeah.
different how they get paid.
Sure.
When overtime kicks in, when it doesn't, and so
I see.
forth.
Yeah.
Night work. There's premium pay for night work.
Yeah.
So like our HR department, I mean, it's a very robust department because there's where there's 7 different unions that we're contractually obligated to, and it's tough.
Yeah.
And then within the union, there's locals, right?
Yeah.
So like the Teamsters, they all have their jurisdiction, right? So now you could be in another guy's jurisdiction and you have to pay that, his benefit package because you're in his jurisdiction. So just keeping up with all that stuff is a big challenge.
Sure.
And we're here to pave roads, right? And make things convenient for the taxpayer.
Yeah.
And we're worried about what jurisdiction we're in. Like, those are big distractions.
Well, and the jurisdictions, are they somewhat arbitrary? Like it's not is it by county?
It's by county, by region, by county.
Yeah.
So like there's regions within counties.
I see.
Right.
I see,
so
I
it's
see.
like,
so what is it? Is it Clark County there?
So Cook County.
Cook County.
Cook County is like Chicago.
Yep.
And then DuPage County, kind of as you go further west.
I see.
And then Will County is like kind of south.
But Cook County, it's enormous, isn't it?
Oh,
it's one of the bigger counties in the country.
I think, the city of Chicago has 3 million people?
Yeah.
Just the city of Chicago.
Yeah.
And Cook County is larger than the city of Chicago.
Well, it's just driving across Chicago.
Yeah.
It's a mission.
It's big.
Yeah. To go to the outskirts to like downtown, you're driving a long way.
So our office is, I would say we're 15 miles from the city. It could take you an hour and 20 minutes to get there.
Yeah.
It's very dense, and
That's why when we worked originally with the demolition company that does work in downtown Chicago, and it's all night work because it's like we can't do it during the day because of different restrictions, but 2, it's like we can't afford to do it during the day because it's just you just don't get anything done.
You're your own worst enemy.
Yeah,
I mean our trucks. If we're on a heavy traveled arterial road, our trucks are stuck in our traffic and our closures, right? So now we can't get the truck to the paver. So what does that mean?
Oh, it's your closure.
It's our closure. Yeah.
That's
yep. Our trucks are in our closure, right? Like trying to get through, but so now the crew's waiting, and it's not a 1-man crew, right? This is a 9-man paving spread.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not cheap labor.
And when you're paving, you shouldn't be stopping all that much.
Right.
You want the mat to just be nice and smooth, and your
pavers should never stop.
Your mix is cooling down in the truck. Yeah. Especially if it's cooler
QC's
out.
calling. Hey, why am I getting, why can't I get density? I had a rolling pattern set up. I'm having to hit the mat 2 more times now. Well, the truck's sat in the closure for 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Do
you guys, do your trucks dump right into pavers, or do you guys run buggies out there?
We run buggies.
Okay.
It depends on the application.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some jobs require them, some don't. We do them just out of goodwill.
They really make a difference.
I think so.
Yeah.
Big time. Yeah.
I always thought it was about just feeding the paver at a consistent rate, but then I didn't even think about segregation. And someone brought that up. I was like, yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Especially with the kind of the heavier regulated specs nowadays, and everything's performance based, right? So we try and use them as much as we can. We have noticed a tremendous difference.
That's performance based. I wonder if that's commonplace. Across the United States.
I don't know. So IDOT has PFP, performance. It's pay for performance, and that is applied on contracts with certain tonnage. Like there's tonnage thresholds. So 8,000 tons or more, I believe, is PFP. Okay. Anything less than 8,000 tons is QCP. Okay. Quality control performance. Okay. And there's different types. Like the QCP, you're measured and paid differently than like PFP. There's different measurements on the specs.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And will it be an outside firm doing the quality control?
If they hire an outside firm, yeah.
Yeah.
So we do our own quality control, and like quality assurance will be done by either the agency that you're working for or whoever they hire.
Yeah.
Yeah. And your results don't matter. Like you just do them just because you want to track how you're doing.
Sure.
You got to make any mix adjustments at your plant or whatever.
Spot a problem before it's a problem.
Exactly. So, but it doesn't matter when it comes to here's my answer, and this is how you're getting paid. Like ours
Sure.
doesn't matter at all.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But have there been situations where it's like a pretty significant discrepancy and you've got to have some conversations after the fact?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we can challenge. So they put in a method now where we're able to challenge some of these results. If we're getting 94% and they're at 89 on a core, on a density core, we're going to challenge that.
Yeah, sure.
There's a reason something happened.
Uh-huh.
We'll always take split samples too, just to run them and make sure.
But that's why it's worth, like with the lab, for example, investing so much in those labs, because that ensures quality, but then is also your insurance policy in a way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Because whatever's done in that lab, I mean, that's how you're paid.
Sure. And so it has to be as careful and precise as possible.
And they're talking to the plant operator too on a minute basis.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I had to switch into a different mix. I got to switch back into that performance-based mix. They communicate that because it changes.
Yeah.
Right. It changes the quality.
Well, and each plant will be making different mixes in a given day, potentially. That's a really big job.
Our highest production facility, we're making 7 mixes a day.
Wow.
7 different types.
Really?
Yeah.
You have that many silos?
We have 8.
8. Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
So it's a demanding for an operator.
Mm-hmm.
You really you kind of know what's going on. And QC as well, because if QC doesn't know what mix we're running and when that switch is going to happen, then, they could be grabbing the wrong sample.
The mix thing's interesting too, because I feel like people just think asphalt's asphalt, but the design of it matters what kind of oil you're using.
Mm-hmm.
What matters what kind of rock you're using. What matters where you're putting it, whether it's base, whether it's surface, what the traffic is on it. There's just so much variance.
There's so much variance.
Yeah, and I really appreciated this, like when I was showing you the Formula One stuff, because on one of the projects, they could not figure out how to make the spec. And I was like, how do you not figure that out? But it's like a lot of it's you just have to get the rocks,
right?
And you have to get the oil, and you gotta
blend them.
Start messing around with them to try to hit this. But on this one, it was the tolerances were just so tight, that they had to hit such a narrow window. They almost had to go buy the mix design or how to do it from somebody else that's done it before.
Okay.
And it's stuff I just had never thought
right. I mean,
about.
you think it's just a road you drive on? They're all the same, right?
Yeah. I thought you just plug your materials into the plant, press some buttons, beep, 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 and then there you go. Asphalt. Easy.
So we do our own mix designs in-house. We do our own.
Do you have to have engineers do that?
Certain mixes, you have to have a PE.
A PE, yeah.
Yeah, but all our labs are fully certified labs to do your mix designs. And these guys are blending. Sometimes it takes them 2 to 3 weeks for one type of mix to put a design together to hit that specification.
That's amazing.
Because there's so many variables, especially like aggregates, right? Think about it. You're getting aggregate out of the earth. Okay. It goes to a crusher. It gets crushed. It's getting beat up, right? Fractionalized down to a certain gradation. And then it gets transported to your facility.
Sure.
And dumped in that material bin.
Yeah.
Right? And then you have a loader coming in and scooping it up and then taking it, hauling it, and feeding your plant, right? There's a lot of steps that we just talked about coming out of the earth to the plant.
Yeah.
Right? Degradation happens, right? All those things can happen. So nothing's the same, right? So these QC guys are constantly running gradations on these aggregates, trying to get a kind of a mean on what that gradation is. And then we plug that into our design. We start blending them. Then we have to get 4 points on that design. And then we take the most consistent point, and that's what we go with.
And it's some of the stuff I hadn't thought about too with aggregate is some of it is thirstier than other aggregate. Like some of it will soak up that oil a little bit better than others. And it's that's like in Florida, for example, they can't pave with native aggregate because it's all lime.
It's all lime.
So it just sucks it right up. So every road in Florida, all of the material is brought in by train.
Wow.
All of it is imported from Georgia and Tennessee and Alabama and other places because they need legitimate rock. And the whole state of Florida is just this one giant piece of limestone. It just doesn't you can't even use it for asphalt.
Yeah.
And I didn't.
Yeah, the absorption is, and that's something we watch. So when these suppliers submit their materials to the DOT agency for approval, absorption is a big factor in that. I mean, we learned the hard way. We were first getting in business. We thought, hey, this guy's selling rock for cheap. Let's go buy it. Right? There's something, it's got to be fine, right? But he's half the price of everybody else. Let's take advantage of this, right? So we do that, and absorptions are like, 4.5%, and you're targeting like 2%. And, well, we'll get it'll be fine. So we're paving, and every roller pass, that mat gets whiter and whiter and whiter, right? Because what's happening is that aggregate is just breaking, right? And that oil, when it breaks, the inside of a rock that's already coated is white, right? Limestone is white.
Sure. Yeah.
So you're seeing this white capping, we call it, and it's like, uh-oh, I think we got to, find another ag supplier.
Sure.
The challenging thing too is when you commit to an aggregate source, and you get that design done, you have to use that mix design or that aggregate source all year. If you make a change, you have to redesign and get that design, that design approved.
But you probably have some flexibility with the aggregate companies because you're probably one of the bigger buyers that they have.
We are.
Yeah.
So we leverage that.
Sure.
And we're holding them, we're holding them honest too. We're checking gradations daily.
Yeah.
Like my QC guys at every facility, they're checking gradations every day.
Yeah.
Every day. Too, the gravities, right? It's like how strong is this rock, right? So that specific gravity matters. And we have to use the specific gravity that is published by the supplier. So if they deviate, it affects the entire volumetric of the mix design.
It's just this is stuff I don't even think about.
Yeah, and it's it's interesting because we're trying to say, hey, let's get away from having to get mix designs approved by the agency, right? Because everything, again, going back to things are performance driven, right? Yeah. We're paid based on our results. So if I want to go out there and pave a street and not even roll it, I should be able to do that. Because I'm getting paid based on those results.
Yeah, I'm just all your job is to meet the spec of the road.
Yep.
Like to give them the product they want.
Correct.
It has to meet certain specs.
And if it does,
that should be my
we get paid the 100%. But why do I have to get my mix design approved?
Sure.
And then also I got to get the mix approved out of the plant once we make it, but I'm paid based on those test results.
That's interesting.
So it's industry is working with policy trying to get that ironed out.
In Chicago is also what I view as like an older school market. It has it feels just like an older school mentality to it, kind of like a Boston, and just like there's a good old boy vibe in a way. Has it been? You're a younger guy. Is it at all interesting to be a younger guy in that market? Running
Extremely.
A pretty good sized company.
Extremely.
Yeah.
We call it the old school. The old school way, right? Never sell equipment. Keep everything you have and just keep maintaining it. I don't care what it costs.
Sure.
We don't. The old school mentality is they don't get rid of anything. The Chicago market, from what I've learned, being in that industry for 17, 18 years, it's who you know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of who you know. That's kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't go in somebody's territory, right? Unless you expect to get the same thing back to you. Exactly. Yeah. So which is interesting. And it's like, why don't we go, do this, do this, do this? And it's like, well, that's not really our territory.
Sure.
So you want to try to keep peace.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
And it's funny. It's such the industry in this it's challenging, right? I mean, it's not easy. And you try to build allies when you're within this industry because there's really, if you don't have allies, you're kind of a duck standing in water by yourself, and it doesn't help. So there's contractors that are around the Chicagoland area that there's allies, and they help each other and so forth, which is important.
Yeah, I've found, like, now being in business for a few years, fights are very rarely worthwhile. Like, very rarely is something really worth, all right, let's lock horns over this.
Yeah.
Most of the time,
it's not worth it.
It's just not worth it.
Yeah.
No, it's just the cost. I mean, not even just the dollars, but it's just the mental energy.
Right.
And using up time from your other, other people involved that should be focused on just running the company.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just so rarely worthwhile.
It's not worth. Yeah, it's not worth it at all.
No.
So,
no.
Being a younger, kind of a younger person within that industry, in the leadership position that I'm in, it's challenging because you don't necessarily have anybody to convey, not only concerns with, but just ideas and so forth. Because I'm talking to a 72-year-old guy who owns a paving company that his mindset, Aaron, is way different than mine. Right? I'm 39 years old.
Yeah.
And this guy's double my age. Like, we don't relate when it comes to decision making and philosophies and so forth. Right.
Yeah.
But it's been, it's been good because when you get into something, there's no syllabus, right? There's no saying, hey, this is how, when you start, this is exactly what you do, and this is what's going to happen.
Yep.
And this is going to be the outcome in 15 years. Like, that doesn't exist, right? So it's, you get up, you go to work, you read, you learn, and you got to take the initiative to willing to learn how to do things and what things mean. And, that trickles down to being able to teach people and find people. And
it's probably like one of my favorite things about business, though, is that it's all made up, and it's all just this giant creative exercise. Like, the whole thing's a puzzle, and the picture you're trying to make with the pieces changes, like sometimes multiple times a day. Like, you're trying to put together some kittens, and then it turns into like a rainbow. Like, you almost have one of the faces of the kittens figured out, and you're excited, and then it just changes on a dime. Now, all right, now I have to figure this. That's a really stupid analogy, best I could come up with in this moment. But it's, even yesterday, we just had something, and it's just like, I have these moments all the time where I'm like, I love this, because this is just problem solving all the time. And I feel like some people don't like that, but people that are built for it, like, that's what gets me going. I love solving big problems, like chestnut checkers, one of my favorite. I don't even know how to play chess, but I like making the chess moves. Like, and you kind of know, it's like, this is a chess move. Like, I've got it here. This is exciting. And sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't, not at all. But it gets me going. Yeah. Really gets me going.
Yeah. That's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of it. But you don't know what each day is going to bring. Like, I mean, every time I walk into the office, it's something different.
Yeah.
Something different. Right. And part of that is people. Like, you have employees. These employees depend on you.
Yeah.
And, which is awesome. Right. To walk in every day and say, hey, I'm leading, a 450 person or employee operation. That's incredible. Right. Like, let's go to work. Let's get these guys going. Let's motivate our team.
Yeah.
These are our expectations, and you start to learn that as you do it. Right. Because nobody's born in this world that knows how to do that stuff without experience and experimenting, right? By doing something, failing, doing something, failing, and then, oh man, I just did the same thing and I hit a home run.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's, we went from, 10 people to 450 in about 15 years.
It's crazy.
And it's been a ride.
I'm sure.
A ride.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I wasn't, I lived in a small town, north of Knoxville, moved, shortly after moved to Clearwater, Florida. And my dad was in the restaurant business. He had a Pizza Hut franchise and he bought a seafood restaurant in Florida. He's like, we're moving to Florida. welcome. It's called Krabby Bill's. Here it is. And I'm like 10 years old, did not want to be in the restaurant business.
Yeah.
After, he was never home.
So how much
He was traveling.
crab meat have you? How many crabs?
A lot
have you
of
broken
gator
down?
tail.
A lot of
gator tail.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he used to go, like, he would do inventory, right? This guy was very hands-on with everything he did.
Uh-huh.
And he's like, come on, I'll take you to, it's late night. They do it all at night. All the boats are coming in. They're getting their crab legs, all the inventory they need is coming off a boat.
Yeah.
So I go with him
That's
that
fun.
night. And I'm like, wow, this is unbelievable. Like, this is what you do. He's like, I really don't do this, but I like being a part of that team.
Yeah.
That's doing it and seeing it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I do not want to get into this industry. So shortly after, we moved to Knoxville. He's, big Tennessee volunteer fan, right? Mm-hmm. Our whole family is. And went to high school there, and then went to University of Tennessee. Loved baseball. Played baseball growing up my whole life, my whole adolescent life. And then got an opportunity to play in college a little bit for a few years, and really learn the camaraderie side of things with that on like my teammates, and how to share moments with, and how to stay together when you're having like tough times. I'm in a batting slump. Like, hey, these two guys are picking me up. Hey, stay with it. You keep working. You're doing great. You kind of learn all that through that, and I think that helped me. I think it helped me, want to be that leader one day. Sure. If baseball didn't work, which I was devastated when it didn't work out. So the next thing was, what do I do? I wanted to be a home builder, right? I wanted to build houses. I loved it. I worked for a home builder, right coming out of school, like last year of school, and loved it, man. I was a laborer, sweeping out houses, like watching all the trades, asking them questions, like, man, how do you frame a house? Like, that's cool.
Yeah. And how fast they do it.
How fast they do it. Like,
mind-boggling.
And then after you frame it, what do? Well, you put the roof on. Like, that's crazy. And then the windows go in, and then it starts folding together, right? Mm-hmm. Like a puzzle.
Yeah.
So love that. And then what happens, right? 2007 hits, right? The crash, the housing crash. And that didn't work out. So I had an opportunity to move to Chicago and work in the road construction space. And that's kind of how things got started. So worked for a company for a few years and transitioned out, and was able to get an opportunity to develop and run an organization that we are here today.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
How do you, in a 15-year period though, like, growth is one thing, but with the asphalt plant thing is tricky, because I can't just buy the lot across the street and say, this is a great place for an asphalt plant.
Yeah.
I think we're going to put an asphalt plant here. It doesn't work that way. And I know there was a little bit more flexibility back in the day, but especially now it's
near impossible today.
Near impossible
to get zoning
today.
to get all that done and then put up an asphalt plant that everybody has a perception that this thing smells, it's trucks and rocks and
So how do you grow in that market? And then how do you grow in that market? Like you said, you do need to be careful with where you go, because you don't want to be stepping on toes and burning bridges. But to grow, you've got to absorb, you've got to get market share somehow.
Yeah.
So how do you balance that? And I know it's a 15-year process.
A lot of we were a single plant owner for 10 years.
Wow.
And then we had an opportunity to, a lot of our growth came from acquisition. We went through a very successful acquisition about 16 months ago.
Okay.
And, acquired additional plants through that.
I see.
But yeah, we had two other plants that there was asphalt plants in that area that were removed. And, the zoning was kind of a grandfathered in, I should say.
Yeah.
So that's how that happened.
Yeah.
So you just gotta, you gotta get at the right place at the right time, and sometimes success, you gotta get lucky every now and then.
Sure.
And people do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think in today's world, in order to grow on that side of things, you have to you got to acquire
acquisition. Yeah, it's really the only
way. You got to
way.
get acquisition. Yeah. So.
That's the tricky thing about asphalt plants. It's like you're providing a public service, but the public doesn't want you there.
Right.
Like, they can't survive without you, but they don't want you.
Yeah. You like the road you're driving on,
Yeah.
but you don't want us around.
Sure. Yeah. And they want the plant where they're not,
Mhm.
but then it's like, well, where they're not is out in a field somewhere,
Right.
40 miles
Yeah.
away, with trap,
Which, it comes with higher costs, right?
Yeah.
Like
Now,
plants further away. Now I got to travel further. So now you're going to pay more because of that. But business friendly towns understand, hey, if they take 1% of your taxable receipts on a monthly basis as an incentive for some revenue for that town,
mm-hmm.
That's enticing for these people.
Yeah.
And some have done that.
Yeah.
And if it's a pro business, politician in office in that town, like they're going to want you in town.
Sure.
Because nowadays these facilities, we've bought several new plants in the last decade. These facilities are, they're eco-friendly.
Yeah.
They are
They're
phenomenal. You can't even hear them.
Yeah. What kind of plants have you
bought? We bought Gencor, a couple Gencors, and I bought one Aztec.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the Unidrum, the old Dillman drum.
Yeah.
That was right when Dillman and Aztec when Aztec acquired Dillman.
Mm-hmm.
But they are so friendly.
Sure.
And you're running stack tests, right, on an annual basis. I mean, you're in compliance on anything with the Illinois EPA, which is highly regulated.
Yeah.
Just near impossible to meet some of their standards. But we do. Mm-hmm. And everybody does. Mm-hmm. And that's something to say for our industry, that it's a good thing to have an asphalt plant.
Sure.
In your town. The sales tax revenue that this town gets from this generation of, our business is big.
Yeah.
And
you could, I don't know if it actually pencils out this way everywhere, but you could make an argument that the roads are better because there's a lower cost to resurface. There's a lower cost for your asphalt.
Yeah.
So if there's a lower cost, you can lay more asphalt.
Yeah.
You can repair more roads.
Right. Exactly.
You can make that budget work
exactly
a little bit further.
Yeah. Get more for what you have.
Yeah.
Too, the oil, right? Oil is, it's 35% of your cost of revenue.
Sure.
Right. It's an expense, man.
Yeah.
It is expensive.
Yeah.
But what makes Chicago unique, there's 7 suppliers within our market.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go further south, north, or west, there's not. There's 1 or 2 guys, and guess what? We know what that means.
Yeah.
Price is the price, right?
Yes. Yeah. Sorry. We're just going to, there's another escalation.
So as an end user of that, it's great. We're buying at a much lower price than another market would be.
Mm-hmm.
Which again allows for, more bang for your buck kind of thing.
It's significant exposure though, or it can be, with that much of your business dependent upon price of oil in a way.
Yeah.
I know it's a specific kind of product within the crude market, but if oil is expensive, if gas is expensive, then your product is probably more expensive. Like it kind of follows.
There's a correlation.
Sure.
There's a correlation there. And here's the funny thing about this is, right, we're a big natural gas user.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
For our heat, right? Or for our heat exchange at all our facilities.
Yep.
That's great. You can hedge natural gas. It's a traded commodity.
Sure.
Right? Well, guess what? Liquid asphalt is not. It's derived from a WTI, right? But you can't hedge.
Is that right?
You're spending $60 million a year in oil on a product that you can't hedge.
Really?
Right? Yeah.
So you can't, because that's like for people that don't know kind of how it works, like airlines, for example, they'll lock in certain rates for jet fuel. For example. Yeah, because it allows them to even out their expenses. So they're not subject to fluctuations.
Fixed costs.
They try to negotiate, all right, next 5 years, here's what we're going to pay for Jet A or whatever it is. So you can't do that for liquid asphalt. It's just spot price.
It's we can buy blocks, we call them.
Yeah.
Small quantity blocks, 5,000, 10,000 ton blocks at a fixed price. But the suppliers, they limit you on the duration of that block. It's, hey, that block's not good all year. It's good from April, May, June.
Yeah.
Right. So you got to use it within that time frame.
I think the only rational thing is to build a refinery.
Yeah, I think that's could be the next step.
Yeah. Get some West Texas.
We've looked at like proxy hedges, and there is a correlation with liquid asphalt to WTI.
Yeah.
Crude, but,
well, I know some of the bigger paving contractors, they will have a terminal and they'll have storage capacity, which does even it out a little bit. Is that how it works?
Yeah.
Kinda.
Yeah. So
like you can buy a giant quantity.
You can.
And just store it.
But here, I mean, you have to heat this material.
Yeah.
Because if it's not heated, it becomes the viscosity goes through the roof and it becomes hard.
Yeah.
Right. And it's you can't.
So there's a cost.
Now we have to heat it, so there's a cost, right? And you need land, right? Now there's a cost to that. You need storage tanks. There's a cost to tanks. We've looked at that, and
your volume just needs to be
unless
enormous.
You can get it if the market wasn't so volatile, and hey, the market just tanked. Remember when oil went negative?
Yes.
Back in 2020.
Yeah, which was wild.
That was wild.
Because everybody's like, "Yep, there's just no more oil that's going to be used ever again." Yeah, we shut the world
down. You can take advantage of that time to buy heavy volume. But what if the market tanks even further?
Sure.
Now you're stuck with this inventory that my competitors are buying much cheaper. I'm stuck with all this oil. I can't resell it because the guy I bought it from, the refiner I bought it from, he's never going to do business with me again.
I see.
Because he doesn't want a guy that he's selling to that's supposed to be using it, reselling it.
Sure.
Right. So
he becomes
it becomes another Chicago interesting kind of thing that goes on. Right.
Yeah.
So it's challenging. You got to find good suppliers and build relationships with the guys, and and hope they work with you on volatility.
What's do you guys use a lot of wrap?
We do.
What's your opinion on wrap?
I don't like to max out. We call it asphalt binder replacement. Binder is an alternative term for liquid asphalt.
Yeah.
I don't like to max that out because it's hard on your plants, right? You get that thermal exposure within your drum, your mixing drum, in that combustion zone. The more wrap going in, because the collar is right there, right at the combustion zone, and when it goes in, you got to heat that quick, right? Quick, because if you don't, your mix is going to be terrible.
I see.
It's going to be the quality will be just awful.
Okay.
I like the idea of taking a road out, bringing it to your facility and recycling it, right? And you putting it back in and extracting that oil and saving on that end. But I don't like to compromise our equipment. So,
I've heard it compromises the quality, the longevity as well.
Could.
Potentially.
Could.
Yeah. That's what
we keep several different piles. If you're fortunate enough to have the room, the land,
sure.
You keep a homogeneous pile, and then you keep kind of a commercial pile, right? A commercial pile is like your private guys, your retail guys coming in. They did a Target parking lot, right? That Target parking lot mix was probably not DOT approved. Those grindings that come in or those millings that come in, they're put in that pile. And then your DOT
you can't put it back into a DOT mix.
Right. Yeah. So, I think if you manage it and you don't get too crazy, we're putting in 60, 70% wrap in your mixes, I think the quality's great.
Sure.
You stay in that 30 to 35 range.
Yeah.
I think it's great.
Yeah, it's I'm just,
and you're getting a lot of binder replacement out of it too.
Sure.
So if your mix design calls for a 6% total liquid asphalt, and you're replacing 2% of that with recycled, now you're only putting 4% in. That's a big savings.
It is. I mean, it's cool how you can recycle asphalt. We haven't figured it out yet in the States, but in Europe too, they recycle concrete, like into new concrete. Like we say we recycle it here. We don't recycle it. We crush it and then fill holes with it.
Sell it for base.
Yeah. If it meets spec, which a lot of times it doesn't because of the lime. I guess
the qualities are bad.
DOTs just don't like it.
Exactly.
So it's even sometimes hard to put places.
Yeah.
But they mix it in new concrete there.
Wow.
Kind of like wrap.
Where was this at?
In Switzerland.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
And elsewhere in Europe, but I know they do it in Switzerland for sure. Yeah. And they take it and make it into all kinds of products, the concrete. Yeah.
Wow.
They don't waste a single bit of it. They don't have landfills.
So how are they doing? I mean, is it a production method or?
It goes way over my head.
Yeah.
I went to like one of my favorite companies to visit, Eberhard. It's a demolition company. They do materials too and construction. But so demolition, they'll just fold a building in as fast as they can and sort out the big chunks and then throw everything else into trucks.
Oh.
Not going to spend any time sorting it here. They haul it to a central sorting facility. They throw everything into the truck, into a bin, goes into the facility in one end. They've got all kinds of different screens, shaker decks, robots picking stuff out. And it separates the wood out, the metal out, the masonry,
and it can recognize the different materials.
Yes.
Wow.
So then you have bins of all of the different materials out of it.
Yeah.
And then they recycle each one of those products into sometimes new concrete, sometimes into like building insulation, sometimes into like roofing tiles. Yeah. They'll incinerate wood for power and incinerate plastics for power. Metal obviously gets recycled. The whole thing is just
amazing.
It's crazy cool. Wow. It's just the material science.
Yeah.
And they have all the labs like internally trying to build these commercial materials.
Are these privately owned companies?
It's a private company.
Wow.
It's just
is
different.
Are they doing that? Are they meeting some type of specification, or is that a requirement with Switzerland or?
Well, Switzerland, you can't dump material anywhere, so you have to recycle it.
Okay.
Like there's no C&D landfills. There's no landfills.
Wow.
You cannot haul stuff off.
Wow.
They burn like all their trash is incinerated for power.
Wow.
So they do not have landfills.
Wow.
Which is just.
So there's a way to do it then. You're saying.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah, but the economics have to be there too.
Yeah,
like or like a Singapore.
Yeah.
It's an island. They can't have. So everybody's like, wow, yeah, Singapore, they recycle everything.
Yeah.
And that's like, well, yes, it's an island. It's one of the most expensive places in the world to live.
Yep.
And they just don't allow you to dump anything. So yes, you have to recycle everything. Like, of course, yes. It's just like the economics work.
Right.
Like I think people, they're always, everybody has this like good intention. Like we need to recycle everything. It's like, well, the money needs to work.
Right.
If the money doesn't work, it's not going to get recycled.
Yeah.
It's going to go right to the landfill.
Yeah.
Like, why do we throw everything in the landfill? It's the cheapest way to do it.
Cheapest way to do it. And we're able to do it.
Put it in a hole. Yeah.
So
yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. It's amazing that you get to see all the different. I mean, you've seen a lot.
It's super cool.
Super cool.
Yeah, it's super cool. Yeah, paving.
I think it's helpful. We get stuck in this little bubble, right? Of just like manufacturing asphalt and paving, right? And that's all we know how to do. And that's all we see, and that's all we think about.
Yeah.
But I think it's eye-opening to go out and even to meet other, we talked about this earlier, other contractors and companies that are in different areas and how they do things.
Sure.
What is their means and methods on certain applications?
Yeah.
And it's fun to hear the testimonies and the stories, and because you relate. At the end of the day, it's all relatable, right? But seeing different construction operations, it's got to be cool.
But I think the future is really in sharing information. Like I think the contractors that are open to sharing information are the ones that those are the ones that are going to succeed long term. Yeah. Like I think the days of just hoarding everything, like we're not going to show you our asphalt plant. It's top secret.
Oh, yeah.
Why not? It's an asphalt plant.
Right.
No,
show it off.
Top secret. Sorry. Like
to that point, we've done a lot of plant tours, we call them. We'll invite municipalities over or whoever and say, hey, this is an asphalt plant. This is what it looks like. We're going to give you the 30-minute tour, and at the end of that tour, I mean, these guys are amazed.
Yeah,
we had no idea this is what goes on.
Sure.
We thought you push a button and the mix just spits out.
Yeah, exactly.
The truck, right?
Yes.
And we've gotten a lot of good feedback from doing that. And I think it builds relationships too. And it teaches. So it teaches these, like our customers, how to order. When they order, they think they're like at McDonald's, right? And they're ordering something and it's just made right there.
Yeah.
It teaches them the operation of A to Z on when that order is placed and how that mix is made and how it's put into their truck.
Yeah.
And then it teaches them when they're in the field paving to learn how to measure right? And correspond that information to the plant so the plant knows how much more material they need, right? Because again, you can't make just 1 ton.
Sure.
You know, these are continuous drum mix plants.
Yeah.
And you're going to waste 40 tons to make 1 ton.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, it's and just a lot of people get frustrated. Even not even construction, like even here, it's like I can get frustrated. Someone's not doing what I want them to do, and I get pissed off about it. But it's like, have I explained to them?
Right.
And if I have, they still don't understand. So I need to find a different way to explain.
Exactly.
Or something's broken here.
Yep.
Like I can get pissed off all day long.
Yep.
But something's broken here. And I feel like that's where the whole construction industry is. It's like, people just don't appreciate us. They don't get what we do, this and that. It's like, but yeah, you haven't talked about what you do. You haven't shown people what you do. Yeah. So like, yes, I think it's just a result of the industry just hiding away. And again, like asphalt and asphalt plants are similar to like mining, for example. Like once you've got your plant, you don't want to talk about it too much because it's like we don't want any drama. Like we're here.
Yeah.
But it's counterintuitive because then if you want to go get anything else, it actually makes everything harder. Yeah. Like it kind of screws you. It better short term, screws you long term. Yeah. For sure. So it's like and I didn't, as I've gotten further and further into this, I've developed a bigger respect for politics. The politics in the construction industry and infrastructure, it is crazy how much there is. And not even like, the mayor. I'm talking just like different companies, different people, different person. Like just the politics is crazy. But it's like some of the big mines in this certain region. If a new mine wants to get permitted in that region, you'd think the other mines would be helpful. The other mines are opposite of helpful because they don't want any attention. No. We've got our permit. Fuck you. Yep. We don't want you here. Right. Because now you're drawing attention to the whole place. Exactly. So just get out of here.
Just get out of here.
Yeah. But that degrades the entire and the whole region's been degraded as a result.
Indirectly.
Yes.
Right. It's the same way with asphalt plants. We don't want anybody coming in because we don't want any more competition.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. That's obvious.
Yes.
We're taking a different approach. We show off our facilities, right? We're proud of them, and I think if the public was more educated on what they do and how they perform and why they're there, I think people would embrace them.
Yeah. I think so.
I do.
Yeah.
And we do a terrible job at getting that information out there and educating the general public. Even our employees. Like my estimator should know what an asphalt plant A looks like, B how it primarily functions, right, on a one-on-one basis, right? They should know that, because it just helps them understand the entire operation of what we're doing.
Yeah, it's funny. Even I'm thinking of like engineering school. When you go through materials, you'll go through asphalt, materials or whatever the hell the class is. You don't ever even see a video about how an asphalt plant works.
No,
at least I didn't.
Never.
Now I think about it. So you're messing with mixed designs and asphalt and this and that, but you don't even know how it's produced. Yeah. And we went to Aztec one time, and they have a little model asphalt plant. Yeah, but it's pretty. It's like the size of this room. Sure. It's pretty big. But then they had a cutout too of one of the drums, and it was like the first time I could visualize like how the material goes one way and then it goes the other way. So it's like it does go on the outside first and then goes to the inside.
And they're double drum,
double drum, So the material as it's spinning travels through on the outside, and then travels through on the inside. It's like, that's
heated on the outside, mixed on the inside, or
and even just what the drum looks like on the inside, because it's just this giant spinning thing. You're like, okay, what's going on in there?
What's on in there? It's
But
and then you open it up and you see all these flights,
super complex.
And then it's like these different flights. Why is this section different than this section? Never had any idea that was even like that.
Yeah.
What is the reason for? Why is the drum tilted? Why is it counterflowing?
Sure.
Why isn't it just a level drum?
Yeah.
Like things like that. I mean, but I take that as it's our responsibility to engage all of our employees and not knowing how to be a professional asphalt producer, but just understanding, how it works.
Mm-hmm.
Material gets surged into these bins. It conveys here. It's weighed. It's put in the drum. The drum mixes it. The liquid asphalt is sprayed at the end, and it's then brought up the slack conveyor into a silo, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, it's loaded into a truck.
Yeah.
Pretty simple.
Once you get it,
Once you get
it. I get it. Yeah.
But it just helps illustrate the whole entire or the operation.
Yeah.
What's going on.
You, I feel like because you're a newer company in an older market, I feel like most of the guys I've seen you have, it's pretty young. Like,
young.
You go in the office and it's a pretty young crowd.
Very young.
I'd say.
Yeah.
And that's
cool. Been done purposely.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I walk around and I joke, obviously, but I tell everybody I don't hire anybody that's older than me. Right.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And no, we've really targeted young guys. And honestly, I don't care what kind of background you have.
Yeah.
I don't care. If you're a worker and you're willing to buy into our culture and our mission, you see our mission vision, you're going to do really damn good in our operation. You're going to fit and you're going to stay with me for a long time.
Mm.
And, I've had a lot of success hiring guys that have no idea what road construction even looks like,
mm-hmm.
right? Other than sitting in a lane closure, getting upset on why they're stuck.
But I think this is what construction hasn't been very willing to do is hire people on the outside. But I would say, I've thought about this more and more. I think I've talked about this. Like the effort you have to put into a person that's new is in a lot of ways the same amount of effort you have to put into somebody that's very experienced, but in a different way sometimes, because sometimes that person that's inexperienced, they're bringing baggage with them. They've got baggage from wherever they were working before and before that and before that and before that. And you've got that can really influence what you've got going on if you don't try to iron out those wrinkles and, hey, here's how we do things here and here's why. Sometimes that's harder than taking somebody that doesn't have a lot of those preconceived notions and experience and just making them into what you need them to be.
Oh, for sure.
At least that's what
younger. So here, hiring a younger person, they don't have they don't have the resume with 5 jobs on it, right?
Yeah.
They don't have that experience of being at 5 different companies. So what does that mean? That means this guy's had one job, maybe not even a job, maybe coming right out of school, and he doesn't know anything other than where he's employed at, which is by us.
Sure.
Right. And now he only knows what he's being taught. He has nothing to compare that to.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you that generates organic success,
it's
man.
So
and
nice.
Efficiencies.
Yeah.
Massive efficiencies.
But it does take time.
It takes time. It takes time.
It does take time. Yeah.
But the investment on that is worth it. We've had guys that have come in and they're, they've been in the industry for 20 years, let's say. And you can't get where they've been for 20 years out of their system. Sure. You cannot.
Yep.
And we've learned that the hard way.
But it's not right or wrong. It's just different.
It's different. And it's just, it doesn't fit, and everybody's different, but it doesn't fit our culture. I've hired bartenders, to be honest.
Sure.
Kids that work their ass off.
Yeah.
And they buy into what we're doing, and they've been with me for 7 years now. 21-year-old kid coming right out. And they're smart.
Yeah.
And again, we don't have our whole industry. There is not a training platform that's been out there. There's not. And what we do, and we're guilty. We hired these kids, and it's like, hey, go follow him for a week on the grinding spread. When you're done, call me. I'll tell you where else to go. That's what we're doing, and it's not effective.
Yeah.
So, you got this young, good class in your organization. Now, how do we get them trained properly?
Sure.
And that's kind of where we're at.
That is the problem we are trying to solve. Yeah. But it's a very complex problem.
Yeah.
It's simple, but not at the same time.
Right.
Because you're dealing with human nature. And it's just like the next generation coming in, it's people like me, or people like you. You didn't grow up around it.
Yeah.
And especially now, I didn't grow up around hard work. I didn't. I was raised in a neighborhood, and we had a landscaping company, and this and that. There wasn't, even if I wanted an opportunity to work, there just it wasn't like, and it wasn't, it's not my fault. Like that's just, that's the reality I was in.
Yeah.
That's what I thought the world was like. And then I went to Montana when I was like 14 years old and got my ass just whooped for the first time.
Yeah.
And that was just the cold water right on my face. Like, oh,
this is what it is.
Yeah. So this is life.
Yeah.
Okay. Check.
I get it.
And then I got a job at 16 when I legally could work.
Yeah.
And then I got a job in construction at 18 when I legally could. Like I legally could not go into the construction industry before 18 years old. So because of where I grew up, I didn't have any construction experience. I didn't know how to read a tape measure. I didn't know how to use a ratchet strap. I didn't know how to start, a cut-off saw. Like I didn't know there's that little bubble that you have to press a few times to get the fuel going. Like I didn't know any of that. I had to learn that almost as an adult. And you feel like an idiot, but it's just like, that's reality now because we've urbanized where like your kids are growing up in Chicago. Mm-hmm. Like you have a construction company, so there's hard work there. But it's like, if you didn't have that, you just had your neighborhood.
Right.
Not a lot going on.
Not a lot going on.
Yeah.
No, you're right. Yeah, for sure.
So,
but yeah, it's a challenging. It's challenging, and it's in trying to get these employees to, to understand what the long-term goal is, right?
Yeah.
That's a good retainage method. I think if you're transparent and I'm very transparent with all our people. This is what we're doing. This is what our outlook is. This is what our future looks like. This is our goals, and so forth. And when they hear that, I think that it rings true in their ears that, hey, this guy is sharing what their future plan is. Like, I must be important.
Sure.
Right. And then they start buying into what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because, hey, you told them what you were going to do, and now they're seeing it. So now they're buying into it.
Well, and people now, because it's the world right now, like from a labor market standpoint, is dramatically different than it was just even 20 years ago, just from like an options standpoint. I have so many options for employment right now. Maybe that changes, AIs, economy, whatever it is. Right now, I've got a lot of options. And if you tell me, like if I ask you, essentially, I'm asking, why should I come to work for you? And if your answer is a paycheck, like, okay, cool. That's a shitty answer because
this guy gets
everybody
a
else
paycheck
says
too.
the same thing. Yeah,
right.
I can get that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, why should I come to work for you? Like, I want a good answer, and if I have a good answer, cool. I'm gonna go all in because there's few companies that can provide a good answer, and then there's fewer companies that can deliver upon that answer.
Yep. Yeah.
And that's when you get the real buy-in. Is like. Not just telling them,
but seeing it,
but showing them. Whoa, hey, this is real. I want to do more of this.
Yep, for sure.
I'm all in at that point. But if I don't get that,
you're out.
I'm going elsewhere.
Yeah.
And that's, I had no trouble.
And it's really not that hard. Like, it's not that hard to do.
I couldn't imagine doing it the other way.
Yeah.
I could not even.
You couldn't. No.
Because it's so beneficial to do it this way. It's just like, I wouldn't even be able to employ anybody. Like the business wouldn't exist if I wasn't doing this. So that's why I'd sit around. I'm like, how does the business exist without this?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's such an easy thing to do that goes such a long way.
Yep.
Yep. But yeah. So yeah, we've targeted young professionals, and we're in the process of kind of developing an internship program, which is really non-existent, either. Like the kid comes to work for you for 3 months, and it's like, man, 3 months, like he can't learn anything in 3 months. Yes, he can.
Sure.
Yes, he can. How do we structure that process to allow him to learn something for 3 months? Because if he learns something, he's gonna remember what he learned. And he's not going to forget about you, and he's probably going to want to come back to work for you the next summer.
Totally.
And then when he graduates, you could probably get him full time.
Yeah. Or even if they go off to some big company, they'll probably come home at some point. You're going to be first in line.
Exactly.
Yeah. So even if it doesn't work out short term,
it
because probably will come around.
The grass is always greener on the other side, and in other people's minds, right?
Well, and sometimes like you could make an argument. It's nice to employ people that have worked in other markets because it's like. you want some of that outside influence,
Yep.
or just the big contractors. It's like
Sure.
the big contractors, they're like, a Kiewit is a Kiewit for a reason.
Right.
They know how to build shit.
Yep.
And so even going out and seeing that's what, like, Rich Pearson, he told me to do. He's like, don't stay here. Go work for other companies.
Yeah.
Because even if you come back here, you're going to be far more valuable to me than if you were to stay here.
Exactly.
I want you to go see
it.
Yeah.
A couple of years and then bring that back.
Yeah. And I'm very pro kids out of college going to the real big companies. Like, go get the shit kicked out of you for a few years. Go work on one of those really sexy projects.
Right.
Like just like a big bridge or a tunnel or something, just once in a generation infrastructure project that you'll never see again.
Yeah. Go see that.
Go do 100 hours a week. Yeah. You know, in some far off land.
Yep.
And then when it's time to settle down, have a family, you don't want to be doing 100 hours a week.
Right.
Like,
come,
let's go.
Give us a call.
Yeah. Come on.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, just trying to structure that is to me very valuable, and getting that internship program kind of laid out and attracting people and then, retaining them.
Yeah.
I feel like anybody can kind of attract, right? By just saying, blowing smoke kind of thing. Hey, this is what we do. This is all you're a great fit, but then, retaining that person, is huge.
Well, and I realize you have to be really careful with what you tell people when you're drawing them in from a hiring standpoint. Because if you tell them stuff that you can't, if you make promises you can't keep, they come in, they're gonna. People are smart. Like, I don't think people give people enough credit. People can smell bullshit.
Yeah.
Really quickly. Really quickly,
sure.
Especially the next generation, because we've been exposed to, like, who's getting scammed on the internet right now? It's all the old people.
Right.
Like, oh, you need my social security number?
Yeah,
oh,
sure.
Geez, yeah, here it is right here. Like, you need me to wire $103,000 to Bermuda? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Whereas, us, it's like, no, kick rocks, get out of it. Like, I think we've just been trained to root it out.
Exactly. Yeah.
And maybe that's false. I don't know, but you can just. If you don't follow up on your promise, and I've noticed too, your folks in charge of hiring can be disconnected from operations in the company as well. So they can go make some promises that, like, don't actually exist.
Right.
And I see that at the, like, college career fairs all the time. It's just so disjointed.
Sure. Yeah.
But their job is to recruit college kids.
Whatever it takes to get them in.
They're salesmen, essentially. Yeah. All they're doing is just sell.
Yeah.
And that's what they're incentivized to do. I don't blame them at all.
But what you don't want to happen is that, you recruit those individuals and they come in to your organization, and then whatever you promised them or that was promised them doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And now it's like, now they're spreading the word.
Yeah.
Right. Hey, this company here, they tell you they're going to do this, but nothing ever happens.
Yeah.
Right. So,
yeah.
But, it's a challenge, but it's important.
I think with internship, I have a bunch of opinions on internships because I went through 5 of them. The start is really important and the end is really important. Like, so many, like, I had a good start, a good end. It's like, that was a damn good summer.
Yeah.
Sometimes there was just like, here's your address.
Right.
Have at it.
Yep.
And it's like, do I get a computer? Like, what am I doing? Like, what? Yeah. Where do I sit?
Yeah.
And then you just show up at the job show and they're looking at you like, who the hell are you?
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm Aaron. I'm here to help you.
Here.
And they're looking around like a PM stressed out. Like, he's got enough shit going on. He's
right.
like, fuck. Like
all
right,
I got to babysit
sit
this
over
kid?
there.
Yeah.
Sit over there and set up your computer. It's like, how? Like, I don't know.
Right.
What, does my shirt say IT department on it?
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's like, I'm being funny, but that's exactly how it is.
That's reality. It is.
Or it has been for me. And then,
There's no doubt.
and then there's endings too, where it just like ends. And it's like, so, like, did I do a good job?
Yeah.
I don't. Do I have a job? Like,
right.
Do you guys want to?
What am I doing next summer? Like,
it just stops.
Yeah.
Which is also pretty jarring.
But
or maybe I just sucked, and maybe they were just like, just put them out the pasture.
Yeah.
Don't just.
No, I doubt it. I think you're right. I think, and everybody's guilty of it, right? It's even new hires. When a guy starts full time, there needs to be an orientation program.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of these bigger companies have them, and it's a great kind of a great syllabus to mimic. But if you're trying to attract and retain people and you don't offer that kind of stuff, you're probably not going to have a high rate of success on recruiting.
Well, and even a lot of orientations, a lot of it with the big, it's a lot of like cover our ass.
Mhm.
Like here's our policies and procedures, safety.
Yeah.
Check the box, check the box,
Yep.
check the box. Yep, we put our people through orientation.
For sure.
Here it is. Check. Insurance company, give us a break.
Right.
Whereas others, it's like I saw a picture. I think it was Dan Garcia, C.W. Matthews, like him talking to, like he makes a point.
Yeah.
To just talk to everybody.
To everybody.
And here's the guy. Like that is so important.
Extreme value.
So important.
Yeah.
And that
And it's easy to do.
It's easy to do,
right?
But you have to prioritize it because it's also easy not to do because you've got insurance to do
you
it,
got everything
and
going
lawyers,
on. Yes,
and you know you're getting audited or whatever it is.
Right.
You've got enough going on. So if you're not deliberate about it,
and those are daily things, by the way, that we just mentioned.
Yeah,
those things happen daily.
Yeah,
right?
We get audited just all the time. But it is also easy for like 6 weeks to go by and you to pick your head up like, what going on here? It's spring.
Oh yeah,
I thought it was winter.
I know. Absolutely. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, prioritizing for sure.
Yeah.
So.
Well, this was fun.
Yeah, this is great.
Nothing to be nervous about. See, just us talking. Yeah, that's easy. Was it? You learned something?
What are we missing? Anything?
I try to hit good stuff. Yeah.